Exile from Ayodhya. The people of Ayodhya eagerly awaited the arrival of the newlywed couples. The city too witnessed pompous celebrations for several days. King Dashratha declared a grand feast for the entire population of Ayodhya and distributed new clothes to every household. The place's grandeur increased by thousand folds with the entry of the four daughters-in-law who were equally well behaved and humble as their husbands. King Dashratha and his queen's joy knew no bounds whenever they thought of their fortune to be blessed with four gems as their sons. Soon 13 years rolled by in peace and prosperity. Due to his growing age, King Dashratha decided to hand over his responsibility to Rama, his eldest son. One fine day, while presiding over the court, he disclosed his intentions to his courtiers. Addressing them, he said, "Dear courtiers, through all these years, I have ruled this kingdom to the best of my abilities. Now, I guess it is time to move on and hand over the responsibility to the next generation. My growing age is not allowing me to shoulder these responsibilities anymore. Being my eldest son and also a man who possesses all the qualities to become a king, I feel that Rama should become Ayodhya's next king. Please let me know your opinion too." As soon as Dashratha mentioned about Rama, the court broke into applause, and all the courtiers agreed to his proposal. Immediately, King Dashratha sent for Rama. Standing before his father, humbly Rama asked him what his orders were for him. With a smile, Dashratha informed Rama that he wished to see him as the next king of his kingdom. Rama took his word as an order and consented to be made the king. Immediately, an auspicious day was fixed and the grand arrangements for the same were made. While Lakshmana took part in the arrangements with great excitement, Bharata and Shatrughna were away from Ayodhya as they went on a visit to their uncle's kingdom. The whole place buzzed with great activity, and so were the chambers of the three queens. Kaikeyi, whose favorite was Rama, was thrilled to hear the news. As she moved around the palace in excitement, her royal servant Mandara looked at her in awe. Soon after, Mandara found Kaikeyi alone in her chamber. She approached her and said, "I am amused at your innocence." Confused with such a sudden comment, Kaikeyi asked Mandara to explain. Mandara said, "Till now you believed that you were the favorite wife of the king, but today he had not even informed you before he took a decision about making Rama the king." When Kaikeyi tried to reason out and argue, Mandara stopped her and continued, "The king had planned all this exactly when your own son Bharata is away from the kingdom. Don't you find any conspiracy behind it? Once Rama becomes the king, Kaushalya would take a significant place and I am sure you would be left behind. I am worried what turn your life would take now." Mandara's words had a desired impact on Kaikeyi. Poisoned by her words, Kaikeyi at once forgot her years of affection for Rama. Turning to Mandara, she said, "Mandara, mark my word, I won't rest till I make Bharata the king of Ayodhya. But give me some quick idea how to proceed." Waiting for a chance, Mandara reminded her of the two boons King Dashratha promised to give her several years back. She asked Kaikeyi to use those boons against Rama and in favor of Bharata. As per the plan, Kaikeyi removed all her jewels and sat in her chamber, dressed in black by the time Dasharatha visited her. Shocked to see her in such a state, when the whole city was celebrating, Dasharatha approached her and asked, "Dear Kaikeyi, what is wrong with you?" Without replying to his question, Kaikeyi said, "Maharaja, do you remember? Once when you were battling, I saved your chariot's wheel from slipping. Appreciating me, you wanted to grant me 2 boons then, but I told you that I would ask them later." As Dasharatha recalled the incident and nodded in agreement, she said, "I want to ask them now." Unaware of Kaikeyi's intentions, Dasharatha asked her to proceed. Kaikeyi said, "Firstly, I want you to make Bharata the king of Ayodhya, and secondly, exile Rama for 14 years from this kingdom." Shocked to hear such ruthless words from Kaikeyi, Dasharatha stood there astonished. After a while, he tried to convince Kaikeyi about her unjust demands, but as she refused to budge, not knowing what to do, Dasharatha sat in her chamber helplessly. Pained deeply by the thought of sending away Rama on exile, he lost his consciousness. Unaffected by her husband's state, Kaikeyi sent a word to Rama to visit her chamber. Following her orders, Rama at once reached her chamber and bowed to her, awaiting her orders. As soon as his eyes fell on Dasharatha, who lay on the floor, his eyes flickered with sorrow, and he asked, "Mother, please tell me the reason why my father is lying on the floor in such a state." Kaikeyi then told him about the boons she asked. Looking at him sternly, she said, "Rama, as per the boons granted by your father to me, I wish to send you on exile to the forest for 14 years and make Bharata the king of Ayodhya. Following his orders, are you ready to give up everything and move out of Ayodhya immediately?" Though Kaikeyi expected Rama to argue with her, without speaking out even a single word and with his smile intact, Rama bowed to her and said, "Mother, I would be glad to fulfill your wish. I am ready to go on exile." Saying so, he touched his father's feet, sought her blessings, and moved out of her chamber. From there, Rama directly reached his mother Kaushalya's chamber. When he found her dressed royally, waiting for the celebrations of his crowning ceremony, he at once went to her and said, "Mother, I have come here with news that might bring pain to you, Sita and Lakshmana. I have been ordered to leave to the forest on exile for the next 14 years by father. In my place, he wishes to see Bharata as the further king. Please bless me and bid me farewell." Soon after he said so, Kausalya fell unconscious. After regaining her consciousness, she pleaded Rama not to leave her and go. Enraged to see the state of Kausalya, Lakshmana decided to confront Kaikeyi at once. Stopping him, Rama said, "Lakshmana, as children of 4 parents, it is our responsibility to follow their orders and satisfy their wishes. I prefer to undergo suffering rather than stay back in Ayodhya refusing to follow their orders." Wiping off tears from Lakshmana's eyes, Rama comforted him and cooled him down. Finally, seeking the blessings of Kaushalya and Sumitra, Rama went to Sita to inform her of his decision. Approaching Sita, he said, "Sita, I have been ordered to go on exile for 14 years. In my absence, please take care of my parents and brothers. Shocked to hear the news, Sita expressed her desire to follow Rama. In spite of Rama's refusal, she stood stern on her words till Rama finally gave in. Lakshmana too decided to follow his brother and got ready to leave Ayodhya after seeking permission from Sumitra. Clad in normal clothes, he moved out of the palace followed by his wife Sita and his brother Lakshmana. Amidst tearful farewell of Ayodhya's population, they rode away in a chariot driven by Sumantra. As soon as they reached the banks of river Ganga, Rama asked Sumantra to return to Ayodhya and asked him to take care of Ayodhya. Sumantra bid him a painful farewell and turned back his chariot towards Ayodhya. On the banks of river Ganga, Rama met Guha, the king of the Ganga valley. Having heard about the arrival of Rama in advance, Guha made all arrangements to welcome the trio. He welcomed them respectfully, washed Rama's feet with milk, and said, "Oh Lord, I am glad that you have accepted my invitation. I heard about the 14 years of exile. I humbly request you to spend the coming 14 years in my kingdom." Pleased with Guha's treatment, Rama said, "Guha, I am happy for the affection you have showered on us, but as per my father's instructions, I have decided to spend the coming 14 years away from Ayodhya in a forest. I would be glad if you can accommodate us for one night." Guha made arrangements for their night stay and offered to take him to the other bank of the river personally the next day morning. As decided, Guha took them to the other bank in his boat and returned to his kingdom after taking leave from them. Turning to Lakshmana, Rama said, "Brother, you lead the way while Sita would follow you. I would stay behind Sita and guard her from wild animals." Following Rama's instructions, Lakshmana walked in the front, leading the way. They had travelled through the rocky path throughout the morning and rested under a tree in the night. The following morning, they reached the ashram of sage Bharadwaja and sought his advice about a place which would be convenient to spend the next 14 years of their exile. When they were informed of Mount Chitrakuta, the trio sought the blessings of the sage and travelled towards Chitrakuta. As soon as they reached the mountain, they were amazed to see its beauty. Various trees that bore beautiful flowers and delicious fruits surrounded the mount. The atmosphere was serene, resounding with a delicate music of water that flowed in streams. As Rama and Sita sat engrossed enjoying the beauty of the surroundings, Lakshmana built 2 huts, one for the couple and the other for him. Soon, 3 of them got used to the life of exile and spent their time in the company of sages and saints who lived in the surroundings. Back in Ayodhya, when Dasharatha knew from Sumantra that Rama was sent on exile, his heart bled with grief. Unable to bear the thought of Rama's separation, Dasharatha fell dead, craving for Rama. On his death, Sumantra sent a word to Bharata and Shatrughna, who were away from Ayodhya, asking them to return immediately. Though they stepped into the kingdom, anticipating celebrations of the crowning ceremony of Rama, and seeing the grief-stricken faces of everyone around, both sensed some trouble. As No one answered their questions. Bharata walked straight to his mother Kaikeyi, who told him the news of Dasharatha's death and Rama's exile. Annoyed with his mother, he resented her actions, accused her of disturbing the peace and harmony of the kingdom, and held her responsible for his father's death. As he sat for several hours crying for Dasharatha, sage Vashishta approached him and comforted him. He taught him the immediate course of action and arranged for the funeral of King Dasharatha. On completion of all the rituals, Vasishta addressed Bharata and said, Bharata, as per your father's wish, please accept the responsibility of ruling this kingdom. Be crowned as the king of Ayodhya. Refusing his proposal, Bharata replied, O holy sage, you are learned man, I need not tell you that there is no better king for Ayodhya than my brother Rama. I have decided to bring my brother back into this kingdom. Instead of him, I would go on exile for 14 years. Requesting the courtiers and the people to follow him, Bharata started his journey towards the Mount Chitrakuta. Soon after Bharata reached the place where Rama lived, he ran towards his brother, fell on his feet, and begged forgiveness. Weeping uncontrollably, he informed Rama regarding Dasharatha's death. Extremely grieved by the news, Rama stood stunned for a long while. After he recovered from grief, Bharata pleaded Rama to come back to Ayodhya and rule the kingdom. Replying that he would not return to Ayodhya without fulfilling his father's orders, Rama asked Bharata to go back to Ayodhya. Bharata too had refused to be the king and stayed stern on his words. Learned men like Vashishta suggested a solution to the problem. Vashishta said, Bharata, as Rama had refused to return to Ayodhya, you shoulder the responsibility of ruling the kingdom in the name of Rama. Rama would be named the king, but you would take care of the affairs of his representative. Both the brothers accepted the proposal put forth by Vashishta. Turning to Rama, Bharata said, Brother, you are my lord. I wish to have your slippers in your memory. I wish to place them on the throne till you come back from exile. During the period of your exile, even I too would live in the same way in which you are living now. Till your return, I would live in a village named Nandi, from where I would operate. In case you fail to come back to Ayodhya after 14 years, I would sacrifice my life in the next second after completion of the 14 years. The population of Ayodhya applauded Bharata's decision, appreciated the love he had for his brother, and promised to support him by all means.